As I'm sure many of you know by now, I'm a big Halo fan. Been following the franchise ever since it debuted back in 2001 on the original Xbox. Going over to a neighbor's house, they just got the Xbox for Christmas, and of course, the game you got back then with your Xbox console was NFL Fever. Oh, and then also this game called Halo, I think. Yeah, I watched people playing it at that time, and I was like, this is the most incredible thing I've ever seen. I need to get this system. I actually didn't get an Xbox for like another year or so, and what I ended up getting was a controller for the Xbox and just going over to a friend's house constantly. We just played Halo all the time. Split screen, of course, back then, and have online play for it. But ever since then, I've pretty much been hooked on the franchise up to a point. So I was really into it with Halo 1, Halo 2, Halo 3, and then Reach, sure, but like the first three were like legendary status for me when it comes to multiplayer first-person shooter, especially on a console, right? The Xbox was awesome. The Xbox 360. I wish I could, if I had a time machine, I wish I could go back in time and show a lot of the gamers now, like the newer generation, what that release in 2007 was like. It was next level stuff. And unfortunately, I don't know if we're ever going to get something like that again. But Halo 3 still to this day is like one of my favorite games ever made, just because of a lot of the relationships and things you make with friends and the times you have in those kinds of games, right? It was awesome. But ever since then, Halo 4, Halo 5, and then Halo Infinite, I can be honest, the franchise started to lose me a bit. I mean, Halo 4, I remember I got it and I said, what is going on here? What is this? It felt like they really wanted to start turning the franchise into Call of Duty. I remember the campaign was okay. I thought that was good. I mean, visually speaking, it looked awesome. It definitely felt off compared to Halo 3. Halo 5 was just, that was just over here somewhere. I don't know. That was where they were trying really hard to lean into the fast-paced movement, flashy combat and stuff like a Call of Duty. I know people really do. There are people out there who like Halo 5's combat, but I'm like that Halo traditionalist, and it still was nowhere near what we had with Halo 2 and Halo 3, especially with the online play. And then we got Halo Infinite, which I actually think was able to mimic as close as possible to that Halo feel that I'm discussing with some of the physics and the gunplay. It was right there. It really was. When I first started playing it in like that, they had the beta stuff that they did and some of the early multiplayer. I said, I think they might have something here. And then unfortunately, the game came out and it just was not able to keep up with their promises. They were constantly falling behind. The campaign felt like two different games stapled together. And if you've played through it and you have like the open world, and then I feel like it's been long enough. So the entire like back half of the game, it just turns into a Halo corridor style. Like it just abandons that open world, open zone style gameplay they were doing. And it felt like two ideas, and they just had to try to figure out how to put the two halves together, and then, like they just shipped it, and that was it. Which, shockingly enough, the campaign actually got rated better than I would have expected. I think there's a lot of potential there with that open world, but who knows what's happening now? And that brings me up to just like a week ago with the announcement that Halo 343 Industries, it's all changing. It's flipping on its head at this point. And that's what we're talking about here today. Guys, enjoy the video. Hit that like button. Subscribe if you're new. That was one of the longest intros I've had. But you get me talking about the past with Halo and seeing what we've had here with the present of Halo. I mean, it's not hard to imagine why someone could go 4 or 5 minutes, just talking about that easily. But if we take a look over here, this is run the news.xbox.com site, and I really wanted to just focus on the current events here with the game itself. There's a lot of discussion around other things online on social media and that kind of thing that I've just been tuning out more and more on places like Twitter and stuff. I wanted to just discuss the franchise and the game and what they're talking about and what they're once again promising. Because I will say some of the promises that we're hearing from them, it does remind me of a lot of the Halo Infinite stuff when they first put out that teaser trailer, which was 2018, if I remember right. They were talking up all kinds of stuff about how awesome Slipspace was going to be. And now they're leaving it behind. But they say Halo Studios, new name, new engine, new games, new philosophy. The idea here now, as they released a video called A New Dawn with their first step, they're moving off of Slipspace, which Slipspace is a fork of the original engine Blam, and they were able to keep the physics and Havoc, I believe, with it, and it was them just trying to update and upgrade that engine that we've had for so long with Halo, and they were trying to make it fit in this box of live service, and based on what they do there and how they run things, it just was not going to match up because of how contractor reliant they are, seemingly at 343, or just Microsoft in general. Having to learn the Slipspace engine apparently was taking up so much time that things weren't coming out at all. Like it went long stretches where we were missing basic core features in Halo Infinite. When the thing first launched, it was missing a Team Slayer match type. Like, I don't know how you don't have that in Halo. And that was an entire discussion point. It seemed once again related to the engine, which sounded weird, but okay, eventually it showed up. And I will say this with Halo Infinite, they have built it out enough to where it does feel like a full-fledged multiplayer game. It just took legitimately like years to get it there, which is very unfortunate. But because of this and what they've learned, they are moving to Unreal Engine 5, which was something that was rumored a year and a half, 2 years ago, actually, 2 years ago, which coincides with something else, which we'll get to in a minute. But they are moving to UE5. And in fact, the last 2 years, they've been working on basically an introduction project, Foundry, of them just playing around in Unreal Engine 5. What can we do with this with Halo? Can this actually work for a storied franchise at this point? A shooter that people come to expect that Halo feel with it. Well, they at least showed us some of the visuals. And I will give them this. Visually speaking, with landscapes, it looks pretty good. Like, I saw this flood world. Listen, that looks impressive, right? Some of the visuals they were showing with that. And some of that has to do with the fact that we only had one biome in Halo Infinite, when we were kind of thinking we'd have a bunch of different biomes to explore, because that's kind of the idea, right? You go to these rings and in space, and they would have different like biomes or climates, if you will, as you go around. It seems just be like North Pacific, West, kind of like, right? That's the idea now. Northwest Pacific is what we seem to get constantly. So seeing this massive contrast to what we're used to, I said, okay, that could actually be awesome to have something like that. They then go on. They show Chief here with the fighting an elite. It's like, oh, okay, the Covenant, I think, looks pretty good. Chief, I'm a little torn on. Once again, the environments look good. I think the environments actually look like above average for most stuff. It looks awesome. We have the pistol there that, of course, super broken in Halo 1. We get the Chief. Chief looked to me a little off. And what I mean by that is Chief looks like an action figure, and the Mjolnir armor here that is supposed to be more metal, it looks like plastic. And while I'm going over some of those criticisms, I also understand that this is a render in Unreal Engine 5 work in progress, as in, again, them seeing if they could get the look or feel of Halo in there as an early build, an early project. So I do believe that, let's say they remake Halo 1. Again, people are pulling from this like, oh, this is proof of it. I don't think so. I think this is them just playing around with it, maybe taking a model from Halo Infinite and just dropping it in here and like, look, here's how it would look in UE5. I think they would work to detail out the armor a bit more, give it that certain sheen so it looks like actual metal and not matte finished plastic here, and then probably scuff it up and make it look a bit imperfect so it looks more realistic. This was just throwing me off. Otherwise, though, I think it looks visually impressive, and that is something that they were stressing. They want Halo to go back to being a visually impressive thing, which at one point in time Halo was. And it sounds weird now because I don't think Halo Infinite looks bad, nothing like that. It doesn't look like the cutting edge experience that we've had previously in Halo games. Like when Halo 2 came out, that set the bar for visuals on consoles with the original Xbox. Even with the first Halo game, there were conversations online if it would run on the PS2 or the GameCube, and I mean, the answer is probably no. I don't believe it would, at least not at how it looked on the original Xbox. Even that game was pushing things for that system. So when they go through here and they start showing off the landscapes, as I mentioned, like these these look good, these landscapes that they're showing. So I think UE5 in that regard is going to be fine. It's just, to me, really going to come down to, can they make Master Chief look correct in some of those Unreal Engine 5 realistic looking visuals without it just looking off, right? So that is my main concern here with their transfer over to UE5. With that said, the benefits of UE5 are tremendous when it comes to workflow. Specifically for what was 343 Industries is now Halo Studios. So they've renamed themselves Halo Studios, and it seems to be all about matching the quote-unquote new approach. And alongside the engine change, the studio itself has seen sweeping changes in general since Halo Infinite. We've covered stories about how they had massive layoffs. Like half of 343 was gone at one point, and then another chunk was laid off. And it does seem like they have worked to reform the workflow, the how things are organized, and they're talking about multiple projects. So when I hear that, and then you hear about them moving to UE5, it's like, okay, they're not even really the same studio they were when working on Halo Infinite. Now, based on 343 Industries, their track record, you feel like that would be a positive thing, I guess, but we don't really know what's going to come out of Halo Studios. And that's, I think, is the biggest issue now, is while this is certainly a lot of information for the potential and the future, we don't really know what they're going to do. And they could absolutely show up with an awesome product. They could. The next Halo could be incredible, but it could also be just bad. And that's the thing. We've seen them come up with games that have missed the mark from previous Halo games that we hold in such high esteem right now. So because of that, because of things like Halo 4, Halo 5, and Infinite with its rocky launch, and then even Master Chief Collection, which was disastrous when it came out. It was one of the worst things I've ever seen in terms of launches for the platform's mascot. I mean, the thing didn't work. Like, I bought it day one, didn't work. I think it took like 3 days for me to just start getting consistent matchmaking. You kind of see their track record, and you go, okay, you're at this point, 343, now named Halo Studios, is in prove it mode to me, as in I'm going to keep an eye on them. I'll still play Halo Infinite here and there as I go, which I also check my playtime on it, and I'm at 350 hours in Halo Infinite, and I'll tell you now, drop in the bucket for Halo 3. I wish that there was a website we would track Halo 3 stats. It was a big deal back then. We track stats, and I have to imagine the playtime in that game for me was absolutely disgusting. It was... I mean, when I say thousands of hours, that might be undershooting it. It was like that. So when I see 350 hours in something like Halo Infinite, I go, that's not bad. It's not bad. Now that also brings us to the big elephant in the room, which might actually end up being two elephants. So one is, could we actually see Halo finally make the jump and become a multi-platform franchise? As in, could it go to PlayStation? And I think at this time, looking at Microsoft and what they've been doing with different franchises, especially recently, nothing's off the table. I do believe Halo could indeed show up on a rival platform like the PlayStation. Who knows? Nintendo could show up with the next system, and Microsoft goes, hey, let's get Halo on there and see how the audience responds to it. I think that is all very, very possible, and you could even say likely at this point, just based on Microsoft's actions. It would certainly be a big shift in gaming, because Master Chief is certainly seen still as the Xbox mascot, despite all the issues and 343's best attempts at wiping out the franchise, it feels like. Maybe by accident, I don't know, but it definitely feels like it, just from what they've done with it so far. It would still be a really big announcement. All right. And I'd also be curious to see how the PlayStation community would react to that in terms of sales. Maybe that would be a massive boost for Halo. And maybe the next one is also free to play. And it's just, here comes the PlayStation base. And yeah, the massive amounts of interest. Sea of Thieves level, how we saw that. It got a huge boost when it showed up on PlayStation. So maybe that is the move for Halo, to just be as many places as possible while technically representing Xbox then on PlayStation. Now, I think it's very possible that the first attempt at that is a Halo 1 remake. And I know I can already hear people maybe groaning about it, but to be honest, this I think would be interesting to see, mostly because we have that Halo with that anniversary edition, and they did the thing where you can jump back and forth between old visuals, new visuals by hitting the back button on the 360. And it's not like a bad remake or anything like that, a remaster remake. It's not particularly great either, though. And when I hear Halo Studios, the fact they have multiple projects in the works, that I think is actually a good idea to have as something that can release sooner rather than later, because I do think lining up a Halo 1 remake for many of the newer generation that, to be frank, has not played the original, maybe the original three, the first three Halos, certainly not the first campaign, which still awesome, by the way. The campaign for the original Halo is still top tier, and I think if they remade it in Unreal Engine 5 as a way for them to kind of get introduced to the engine, work things out with the campaign, release that maybe at a smaller price point, like 20 or 30 bucks or something like that, or just put it in the Game Pass just as a way to get people introduced, show off what their plans are for Unreal Engine, and then full speed ahead for the next big Halo release that from today, I mean, it might be like a 2028 release, because I think what we were looking at there with some of that footage, it's probably stuff that's on like the next generation device from Microsoft. And I mean, also think about the fact that if they did remake the first Halo, they'd put it on Xbox, they'd probably put it on PlayStation, they'd probably put it on the next Nintendo system. And it's a way to introduce people to the franchise with a brand new game from the old first Halo, right? 25 years later. I think that'd be a cool thing to have as the anniversary, but that's just me. Looking at where things are now with Halo Studios, they're going to go away for a while. We're not going to see their first product, as I mentioned, at the earliest, probably a couple of years to line up with the 2026 holiday for the 25th anniversary. I'd like to be optimistic about this. They just haven't really given me a lot to be optimistic about. I guess you could say very cautious optimism. We'll say highly cautious optimism, I guess. Optimistic, cautiously optimistic, right? That's the best I can kind of give them right now, but I am hopeful, I will say that, because I would like to see Halo return as a franchise that can be big in gaming once again, because that was a special time back then. When you saw Master Chief in like a Super Bowl commercial, there were some good commercials for Halo back then. A Super Bowl commercial, NBA Finals commercial, or like the big slot where they spent big money because they are so confident in Master Chief to represent Microsoft and Xbox. It was good stuff back then. And I'd like to see Master Chief become more relevant, the Halo franchise be more relevant than where it is now, which is, I mean, honestly, a stepping stone compared to something like Fortnite. But let me know what you guys think about this one down below. Is there any way forward for Halo Studios? Can they recover what we've seen with Halo over the last decade plus? Or is this kind of just it? It's just Halo's going to be at this level and there's not much they can do to fix it. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.